Welcome to ModPath Chat, the official podcast of modern pathology, featuring interviews with authors and experts on the latest science, technology, and developments in the field of pathology. Our host, Dr. George Netto, is the editor-in-chief of Modern Pathology and professor and chair of pathology and laboratory medicine at Perelman School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania. Here's Dr. Netto.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode, which I promise will be a very, very interesting and enjoyable episode of ModPath Chat. Today's guest is Dr. Laura Lambs. Laura is a Godfrey Stobbe Professor and Director of Gastrointestinal Pathology at the University of Michigan. She holds many roles, including her vice chair role in faculty development. And let me give you a clue there. That's going to be the topic of our conversation today. Laura is an amazing leader in the field. She's served in so many roles in our academy, and which culminated in her being the president of the USCAP board. Her leadership and contributions are greatly appreciated since we are a journal of United States and Canadian Academy of Pathology. So welcome to this episode, Laura, and thank you very much for accepting my invitation.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much.
So we can take maybe 10 episodes at least about manuscript and topics that you've touched upon and impacted the field in GI. Your publications, your textbooks contribution, including one of my favorites, which is Rosae Ackerman, that we all learned from being one of the 4 editors, are so impactful, and generations to come will benefit from these discoveries and contributions. But today I want to focus on something totally different, on your experience in mentorship and in leadership development. So maybe we can spend the next few minutes talking on that. Let's start with the mentorship aspect. What's your advice to young faculty or even trainees at this stage of their career? What are the clues? What are the advice that you can give to become such a successful figure and a successful woman leader like you?
Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to engage in this topic because it's one of my favorites. So one of the things I've thought about for a long time is what a good mentoring model looks like. Because I think historically we've all thought about a mentor as sort of one person senior to us who's going to serve every need we might have as a protege, whether it's research or academic advancement or dealing with difficult people or, all of these things. And I think when we really think about that, it's almost impossible for one human to serve all the needs of an up and coming junior faculty member or a junior faculty member who's struggling. And so after doing a lot of reading more in the business world and the pathology world, what I advise people to think about, whether they're junior or, our age, is to think about having a board of directors, a personal board of directors, wow, and to try to identify people who can help you with more specific things and not just have one mentor who's going to fulfill all your needs. So, maybe there's someone who's just a whiz at research and writing and organizing data that might be helpful for research. And maybe there's another person who just has a ton of common sense and can help you navigate departmental politics or difficult people. And maybe there's another person who's really good at wellness and they can help you navigate your work-life balance or, things like that. So one of the things we're about to pilot here that I'm really excited about is what we call a mentoring catalog. And we've had every mid and senior level faculty member fill out a really short biography about, what they do at work, what they enjoy outside of work, and the areas they're comfortable mentoring in. And we're going to put all of that in a shared file. And when we have people come in, our new faculty or our junior faculty, they can basically go through that catalog and pick the people that they would like to talk to about whatever. and sort of start to develop that board of directors. And so I'm going to be really interested in how that turns out, but I feel like that's going to be a really promising pilot. So that would be the first piece of advice that I would give, would be, to think about it more as mentors than just one person. Um, and you can have me back next year and I'll tell you how it went.
All right. And if I expect it's going to go very well, and hopefully you can share that catalog with us and other institutions.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Excellent. So I want to drill a little bit about that, because you mentioned a couple of very important aspects. We always think of career around writing, especially in academic, around either learning the expertise of diagnostics, you want to mentor there, or publications, how to give a talk, how to write a paper, or how to frame a question around the research question. But equally important, the other areas that you touched briefly on is how to make sure that the wellness doesn't fall through all this struggle. And so I want to circle back to that, but equally, and probably that's part of the wellness, the stresses at work that comes from dealing with difficult situations, dealing with difficult colleagues or difficult bosses, which we all have gone through. Any lesson learned on maybe the second topic first, that you can give advice how? I'm sure in your career you've had moments where you say, what am I going to do about this guy or this lady? But how you navigated that in a successful manner?
So I think there's a number of ways to do that. One, back to our mentoring model, is we all know people who are almost supernaturally good at dealing with difficult people and difficult situations. And I think those can be great resources. I also think most institutions, through their Office of Faculty Affairs, teach courses. The most common one is called Crucial Conversations. It's also a book, and it's really, really good about just teaching you how to have very difficult conversations, whether it's with your boss or someone that you boss or your spouse or your kid. It's really, the people who are trained to teach it are extraordinarily talented. And we have it here at Michigan. I think most universities have it or have people trained to teach it. So I recommend, especially to people considering any sort of leadership position in their future, that they find a Crucial Conversations course to take. It's like 2 half days. It's not a big time investment. And I think things like that are really helpful. And in the course of doing that, they actually make you practice having difficult conversations, which is very uncomfortable for most of us, but a good thing to do. I think another thing to do is, especially if you're headed into a leadership position, is to see what executive coaching or leadership coaching resources your institution has. That's kind of a big up and coming thing at most places, is to offer executive coaching or leadership coaching at all levels. And many departments partner with the institution to offer that for free. And I think those people can really be helpful in things like, dealing with a difficult boss, dealing with difficult employees, dealing with difficult peers. I think a lot of institutions are really recognizing that they need to put energy in helping their faculty develop along those lines. Because, as you and I both know, you can be the most successful scholar in the world, but if you're having a miserable time with your boss or your colleagues or the people that report to you, that's not usually a sustainable situation.
Absolutely, and really impacts your potential for success, and
right,
and more importantly, your wellness. Which will later on, I want to touch upon that and talk about some of the hobbies and other aspects of your activities. But you were mentioning that the executive coaching, and to me, it's plays into this nature and versus nurture leadership development. I always, try to share with people who ask me, it's not something you're necessarily, some aspect you're born with. You can be a more extroverted person than introvert, but it's really maybe 90% of it is skills you can learn and experiences. And I notice even this late in your career, you're a graduate of that executive coaching program at UFM, and so. You agree that this is something one should be, those of us who want to be a leader. And I think in a way, every pathologist and every educator, especially on that, is a leader in her or his own.
Yeah.
And you can be a leader of a small group, you can be a leader of a department or a university. So to me is really it's you have to be intentional and methodical and invest in these things.
Well said. Yeah, I agree. And, all of us, whether we're leaders or aspiring leaders or educational role models, all of us have room to grow, right? Whether it's being a better listener or being better at difficult conversations or not losing our temper or, all of us have room to grow, right? And absolutely. I think that's where even a very short engagement with a skilled coach or that kind of person can really be beneficial because they're trained to work on short-term goals, like conflict resolution or
change management.
Change management, dealing with your boss. They're so well trained to do that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do that program was, I feel like I've been doing faculty development for a really long time and I enjoy it. And I think it's so important, but I wanted some more tools and I wanted some more skills so that I could help people. For example, there's a conflict tool that you can take and it actually tells you, how you manage conflict and what you could improve on and where you're falling down. It puts you in situations. And, I'd learned about a lot of tools that are really useful. So I think all of those, back to your original question of how do we invest in those things, are out there. Most universities have them. It's just sort of a question of getting people hooked up with the right resources.
I mean, I love the idea, and I admittedly, I've never thought of it that way. The board of directors of mentors. We all have more than one mentor, either time, depending on the stage of your career, but also several at the same time. And it's very well put the way you did, because no single mentor can satisfy all the needs or all the aspects of what you're trying to learn.
Exactly. Right. Especially, I think 50 years ago, maybe that was more doable, but how much more complex is pathology and medicine and the world than it was 50 years ago? And, I can help people all day long with time management, but, I can't help them with data analysis to save my life. I can't add. So, I think it's just a really good thing to think about. And often, if you have someone who's more of your general mentor, a good one can help you find those other people for your board of directors, plus networking at places like USCAP meetings, or, some of my most treasured relationships are formed from seeing people at meetings and talking about shared problems, and I think that's a good way to do it too.
Absolutely. I know USCAP at a certain point was making this, asking for volunteers to be mentors and trying to make a thing. And in my experience, and I had the honor, to be asked to mentor some colleagues that never worked with me, even in the same institution, and I knew through these meetings. And you're absolutely correct. And I think another advice is a mentor can be external to your institution.
Absolutely.
I think that's very valuable, although they don't know the ins and outs of your department or your institution. It gives that perspective, that outside perspective. So you need both, and you shouldn't be just thinking who's in my department can serve as my mentor.
And to expand on that even more, when I lecture on mentoring, I talk a lot about, I think we tend to get caught up in the idea that our mentor has to be like us, like they have to be a woman or a man, or they have to be a GI or a GU pathologist, or they have to be a certain age, or, in our institution. And there's a really good interview that Condoleezza Rice gave when she was in the White House. And she said, if I had waited for a mentor that looked like me, I would still be waiting. And, she pointed out she was the only female, the only woman of color at all when she was at the height of her career, and all of her mentors were white men. And she said, that's what I had to work with. And so I did, and they were great mentors. And so I always encourage people, I may be a GI pathologist, but there's a lot of other things that I can also help you with. And people outside your institution, they might not be next door, but there are lots of people that I regularly schedule phone calls with. And in fact, I have a external mentoring group of 7 people around the country, and we meet once a month. We read an article that the only rule is it can't be about pathology. It has to be about some aspect of personal development or career development. And we meet and talk about it and talk about what's going on in our lives and share problems. And, I think something like that would benefit anybody, and so I think there's a lot of ways. I think it's a great point to realize that your mentor doesn't have to be right there across the hall from you. It can be anywhere in the country or the world, and you can still benefit. I think that's a really good thing to point out.
What a very helpful advice. This is tremendous. I know I'm learning from this, and like you said, it's a never-ending process, and some of it, you want to minimize. Having to do the mistake to learn from your own mistakes. That's the whole purpose. Because it makes it even more difficult. But there is no doubt that some element of it is you learn what not to do. And because last time you did that, it costs you a lot of energy and a lot of pain to go back and address that negative impact that created around you or to yourself. So, but as you said, the best way is to learn from others and avoid those mistakes. So let's finish with some fun stuff. So wellness, and I see you have a lot of extracurricular activities that you're passionate about. We won't talk about the knitting and cooking. I want to focus on, although you and I talked about that when you came down to the South and we enjoyed the Southern cuisine together in Birmingham.
Yes.
But let's focus, and you're still an Auburn fan, I take it, by the way, right?
Well, I have to be, or my dad wouldn't speak to me. So,
so we won't talk football and all that, but let's focus on the animal welfare and the yoga instructor. Share with our audience something about that and why you're passionate about this.
I'm passionate about yoga because it's, I think, the greatest combination of, exercise and meditation and just being mindful and forcing yourself not to be caught up in what's about to happen or what I don't like that already happened, just being right there in the moment. And I think it's just so healthy in so many ways. I'm a huge animal lover. I don't formally work for animal welfare anymore, but when I was in Arkansas, I was the president of the board of a large animal welfare organization. And I will say that was one of the most formative leadership experiences I've ever had. I mean, the dog people hated the cat people. The domestic cat people hated the feral cat people, and they fought all the time. And, people were like, oh, USCAP, must have been so challenging to be president. And in ways it was, but it was nothing compared to when the dog and the cat people were really fighting. I learned so much about board management from that experience. And, it was just, I could write a book about it, but I think it's really important both for mental health now and for planning for the future to have things like that you're engaged in and that give you purpose. Because, at some point, all of us are probably going to retire. And I think, having the transition into a spot in the community and something that gives you purpose is both good for your mental health all the way along, but also sort of helps you think about a transition when we're not full-time doctors anymore. So I think all of that is really useful.
So enjoyable. Very well put. Thank you. And I can't pass over herding GU and GI expert at USCAP. So it is easier than herding cat lovers and
man, yes. Very much so.
Well, on that note, I really thank you, and I'm sure our audience will enjoy this episode and learn a lot. And I really appreciate you taking the time. I know how busy looking at the microscope behind you. I'll let you go back to your work.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for giving a platform to some of these really important things that I think we don't talk about enough. So I really appreciate it.
We'll have you back again to talk science.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any opinions expressed in this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the views of Modern Pathology, Elsevier, the University of Pennsylvania, or USCAP. Your ModPath Chat host and scientific director is Dr. George Netto. The producers are Dr. Catherine Ketchum and Carly Hess. Technical direction is provided by Kaminsky Productions. Music by Mitch Neubauer. Thanks to the authors, reviewers, and editors of Modern Pathology for making this podcast possible.